Imagine getting sober in the 1980s. That's like history. There was no podcast. There was no sober curious movement. There was no alcohol free menus. It was just you and a decision. And today's guest did exactly that. And more than 40 years later, he's still helping people rethink their relationship with alcohol, not just through sobriety, but through something deeper: self worth. If you've stepped away from drinking or the things that used to numb you, you know it changes your life. But it changes the people watching you too. You become quiet proof that something better is possible. On Sober Life Rocks, we talk with people who realize that their choice wasn't just personal, it was a platform, a chance to be a leader, to shorten somebody else's learning curve, to do something that really mattered. If you felt that pull, you're in the right place. Subscribe and stay with us. Today's guest brings both depth and perspective to this conversation, and I am just so excited to have him. Randy Haveson is the founder of Worth at Work. He's a counselor, a TEDx speaker, and the author of Party with a Plan, the guide to low-risk drinking. He's been featured on CNN and Fox News, created the 0, 1, 2, 3 method to help people move beyond the vague idea of drink responsibly, and his podcast ranks in the top 10% globally. But what makes his story especially interesting is where it started. As a drummer in a rock band in the early 1980s, a lifestyle where drinking wasn't just common, it was expected. Randy got sober in 1984 after hitting rock bottom. And more than 4 decades later, he's still helping people rethink not just alcohol, but how they relate to themselves. Randy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. Now, first of all, I just want to say that I did the math this morning, and you double me in sobriety. Exactly. I'm at 21, you're at 42, right? So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. But I want to talk to you about, I know how hard it was to get sober in 2005 when I did. The stigma was real. So take me back to the days just before you got sober. What was life like? And then what happened?
Life was pure chaos. I was a college student. I was at San Diego State University. I had a wonderful job delivering pizza. I got fired from that job, and I was expelled from San Diego State University twice. And after that second...
Overachiever.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, I don't want to just do it. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So actually, I got expelled the first time, petitioned to get back in, totally lied on the form I had to fill out. My grandmother was sick, my parent, this whole thing, and they let me back in. But my grades continued to suffer. That saying of next time it's going to be different. That was like the saying of my life. Oh, I know I blew it, but next time it's going to be different. And it never was. And May 16th, 1984, I got that letter from San Diego State saying you're expelled for the second time. And I had been fired from my job. I couldn't pay my bills. My life was a mess. I was down to 134 pounds at 5'9". And I thought, I can't do this anymore. So I thought, okay, I'm going to leave a note on my bedroom door that says, don't come in, just call 911. And I got a knife that my parents gave me as a holiday gift one year, and I knew that you cut down and not across if you were serious. And I thought, well, can you cut one and then cut the other? I don't know. Maybe I'll just slice open my throat instead. So I looked in the bathroom mirror to see where to start, and I made eye contact and went, what are you doing? Oh my God, you have a drug problem. And that was the first time that it occurred to me that was the issue that was going on. And I kind of did one of those flashbacks of everything negative that happened in my life over the last decade. And every single one of them was alcohol and drug related. And I thought, I need help. And I did the most courageous thing I've ever done in my life. I picked up the phone. It took me actually 45 minutes to make the call, but I called a hotline, 1-800-BE-SOBER. And the phone rang and a woman answered. She said, Be Sober hotline. And I said, yeah, hi. I think I have a drug problem. And she started talking to me. She talked to me about how she got sober, and she'd been sober for 1.5 years. It was like, what? How do you do that? And we talked for a while, and she gave me that one thing that I needed more than anything else, and that was hope. And the next day, I reached out to some local resources. I found a treatment center in town. I went for an assessment, and I went to the director of admissions and I said, I need help. And he did the assessment and said, you sound really motivated to change. I said, I am. And here's one of the differences of getting sober in the 80s and getting sober now. He said, I don't think you need treatment right now. Here's the name of a therapist. Go see him. Go to 12-step meetings. And if you relapse, come back in. We'll check you in. I said, okay. And I called the therapist and I saw him. He's still a friend of mine today. He has 44 years. And I'm going to go see him get his chip next week. And I haven't relapsed. I haven't used since. I did drink on May 27th because I thought, well, I'm not really an alcoholic. I can still drink. And I planned to have two, and I spent all my money on alcohol. Woke up on May 28th and said, I'm an alcoholic too. So that's my sobriety date, May 28th, 1984. So it's
Randy, thank you for sharing that story. It's everybody has their moments, and a suicide attempt is not one to be taken lightly. My my own personal experience, I have family members who went through very similar things, and it's just such a dark, dark moment.
Yeah.
And thank goodness that you had that moment of clarity.
Absolutely. I'm every day it's about gratitude, because I have friends who've died. I've had friends who've committed suicide, intentional overdoses and, accidents that are they an accident? So it's happened so many times. And every time I just feel so grateful that I made the choice that I made. And it just reinforces that I'm on the right path.
So you've been kicked out of college. Now you've got sober. How did you move into life at that point? I mean, that's a pretty low place, especially in the 80s. Like you're a loser.
Absolutely. And that's how I felt too. And part of my growth journey into recovery is realizing I do have worth, I do have value, and I started to see it in little ways by doing service work in the 12-step programs, by volunteering for different organizations, by just helping a classmate back in school. That helped give me that worth and realize, oh, wow, I love being of service to others. That really fills me up. That's a high in and of itself. And the cool thing is, at about 30 days of sobriety, I don't know why I kept that letter from San Diego State and I read it again. And it said, if you'd like to talk to someone, make an appointment with Dr. Celia Marshak, the Dean of Students in the psychology department, or Dean of the psychology department, go and talk to her. And I made an appointment. I went in and talked to her. And she said, why are you here? She's this little old lady, kind of reminded me of the woman from Poltergeist. Why are you here? I looked at your record. We already expelled you twice. And I said, yeah, you did. But here's my 60-day chip from Cocaine Anonymous. And I'm in recovery now. And the reason you kicked me out was because of my addiction. And I'm sober and I realize how important my education is. And I'd love another chance. I've never done this in my entire time being here. I've never given someone a third chance, but I'm giving you a third chance. I want you to take one class, experimental psych. If you get a C or better, I'm letting you back into the university. So, okay. And I looked through all the sections of experimental psych and I picked one and I went in the first day and the professor said, a third of you are going to fail this class. And I was like, oh, great. And I talked to the professor after the class and I said, look, I'm in recovery. I'm given another chance. I need a C or better. I'm willing to do anything it takes. She said, why did you pick my course, my section? I said, I don't know. It just seemed to fit. She said, I've been in Al-Anon for 25 years. I will support you, but I will not enable you. I'm like, okay, that works. And I got a C in the class.
Nice.
Yeah. And I got back into school and got my bachelor's, got my master's, because I realized that as long as I stay out of my own way, anything is possible. Anything.
So, Randy, one of the decisions that I made early on was that I was terrified that if anybody knew that I was in recovery, I was going to lose fill in the blank. I was going to lose my job. I was going to lose my kids. I was going to lose my friends. And so I chose to keep that hidden for 18 and a half years of my sobriety.
Wow. Oh, I told everybody. I told the grocery store clerk. I told everybody, oh, hey, the reason I'm so messed up is because I'm a drug. No, I didn't say that, but I told everybody because it was a freedom that I felt. And I felt like it wasn't something to be ashamed of. Reaching out for help and doing that, it was something to be proud of. So
And
for
how was
some
that
reason,
received?
huh?
How was that received?
Some people were shocked. Most people were, wow, good for you. That's really great. And then I started getting, I know someone. How can I help them? So I got a lot of that too, sitting on an airplane next to someone, I'm in recovery. It's like, oh, my brother or my daughter or my uncle. And it would always get into conversation. And I found that I really liked helping people and giving them tips on how to help others.
Hmm. So take me there from that moment to when you started to use that in your career.
Huh. I didn't know what my career was going to be. And it's amazing how my path, if you scripted my life and put it in a movie, no one would believe that it happened. I started doing service work through my 12-step program, and I was doing we're going into hospitals and taking meetings in there. And at one of the places I went to, after a few months, one of the counselors said, these kids love you here. We have a program tech position open. Do you want to apply? I was like, work here? Sure. So I applied and they hired me, and I started working as a program tech at a treatment center. And my therapist called me one day, hey, there's a woman at University of San Diego looking for a speaker. You want to go speak to their students? Sure. And I went and did that. And she said, that was the best talk on alcohol and drugs I've ever seen. I was like, oh, thank you. And I have no idea what I said. And a few months later, she called me. She said, I'm at a conference in Northern California, and there's a college up here, and they're looking for someone to run their drug and alcohol program on their campus. Can I give them your name? I was like, work on a college campus? They used to throw me out of college campuses. I'm going to go work at one. And my sponsor was like, what do you have to lose? Just do it. So I applied for the job and they hired me. And that began my career in higher education. And I was a university administrator. And I went into my first job not knowing a thing about what I was doing. But by the third university I was at, I won an award for being one of the most effective health education programs on campuses around the country. So,
Wow.
yeah, it blew me away. And I started speaking I would go to conferences and I'd hear people speak and I go, I can do that. So I applied and I started speaking at conferences and people say, hey, can you come speak on my campus? So that began my career as a professional speaker. So everything just kind of built on its own and I just stayed out of the way. And it's been so magical. I so blessed and so grateful to be where I am today.
Now, you have a book, actually a series of books. It's like Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's Party with a Plan for the fill in the blank, which is interesting because it's not necessarily about sobriety.
No,
So, what problem were you trying to solve with that book?
the problem I was trying to solve, working on a college campus, I found that there were a lot of students who would get in trouble with alcohol, but didn't have an alcohol problem. And it would be that one night of doing something, and all of a sudden they had to come see me, and I had to do the assessment and all of that. And I realized that no wonder they're getting in trouble. They keep hearing just say no or be responsible, which means absolutely nothing. You ask 5 people to define responsible drinking, you get 5 completely different answers. So I did a bunch of research from a lot of different sources, and I came up with a formula of 0, 1, 2, 3. So the 0, 1, 2, 3 is that we all know that sometimes 0 is your best option. If you haven't eaten, if you're an alcoholic, if you have a big test or a work project the next day, there are a number of reasons where 0 is your best option. And I go into more detail in the book. But if you are going to drink, the low risk guidelines are no more than 1 drink per hour, which is a 12-ounce beer, 5-ounce glass of wine, or a 1-ounce shot, because that's what your liver can process at any one time. one per hour. So the more you put in at one time, your liver starts backing up. Now it's in your bloodstream and in your brain, and now you're feeling impaired. So one per hour is the low risk guideline. So now we're not talking about responsibility, we're talking about low risk. And my analogy that I use is just like a speed limit tells you the safest low risk speed to go on a highway. The more you go over the speed limit, the more often you go over the speed limit, the more you put yourself and others at risk. So, do you want to put yourself at risk? Sometimes I'll go 70 and a 55. If there's no traffic, if the weather's good, I can go a little more. But for the most part, I stick to, 10 miles above the speed limit or less, to be honest. So, one per hour. The two is I did the research and found out that those who tend to get in the most trouble with alcohol are those who drink 3 or more times per week, which means that 2 is the low risk guideline. So no more than 2 times a week. And the 3 is no more than 3 drinks anytime you go out. Because again, the research shows the people who get in trouble have 4 or more in any given evening. So low risk guidelines, 0, 1, 2, 3. Know what your limits are. And the test that I give people is, can you do the 0, 1, 2, 3 for 30 days? Like if I ask you, go 30 days doing the 0, 1, 2, 3, you're like, okay. But you ask some people and they're like, 30 days, that's like a month. Yes. Can you do it? So it's a great test to see if someone
only drinking 2 nights a week. What?
Exactly. Yeah. And 1 per hour and no more than 3. So yeah, that's how you can tell the difference between someone who abuses and someone who's low risk or drinks high risk every now and then. Yeah, I can pull back for a month. Sure.
Yeah.
And basically,
what I love about that too is that
control over the alcohol, or does alcohol have control over you?
Yeah. And what I love about that too is that, we go into these situations, whether it's as a college student or as a professional, and we're uncomfortable, and the drink in our hand is like our little, blankie, right? It's our little comfort item. And we don't really think about how much we're drinking. We're just keeping the cup there and full. And, I'll out my son here because he said it before. Like he ended up with alcohol poisoning twice and ended up in the hospital twice in college.
Right.
And he was in a fraternity and just doing the deal. And he's not a problem drinker. He just didn't know how to navigate all of that, had never really done it. Growing up with me in recovery, like he just didn't drink through high school. So he just went crazy. And a fraternity brother finally pulled him aside and he said, look, keep a pen with you. And every time that you get another drink, just put a pen mark on your wrist. And after you have had 3, stop.
Yeah.
And he said it was just like this aha moment. It never occurred to him to like monitor.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And he never had a problem after that.
Exactly. When you give people solid guidelines and not just, hey, from now on, drink responsibly.
Yeah.
What is that, right? I mean, it's laughable. But when you give specific guidelines in 3, that's the perfect number. Yeah.
Yep.
And no one knows what's in your red cup. No one knows what it is. They don't know if it's ginger ale or Diet Coke or 7 and 7. Nobody knows. So carry your drink, but be low risk with it.
So I want to transition now into, because I just mentioned when you're especially at a corporate event, right, and the little black bar, and you have your blankie, which is your cup in your hand. We believe at Sober Life Rocks that we aren't doing a good enough job in the world to have sort of more inclusive event spaces or conference after parties or whatever. And by that we mean we're not here to suggest that people don't drink. If you want to drink.
Yeah.
But for those of us that choose not to, it can be a very outsider looking in sort of event.
Okay, let me ask you this though. Haven't you noticed that when people say, "Oh, do you want to drink?" It's like, "No, I don't drink alcohol. I'll take a ginger ale." It gives them permission too. It makes it more common. And yes, there are non-alcoholic bars that are coming out now. And I think people like us and people who are watching and listening, we give them permission that you don't have to drink to fit in. You don't have to drink alcohol in order to be a part of. So we give other people permission to say, wow, well, if she can do it, if he can do it, I can do it too. Not everybody drinks. No, that's not true. So,
Absolutely.
so we become the new norm.
Now, I know that you've worked at Disney. Where have you worked in other hotel chains?
No, that was the only one. We lived in Orlando. I'm a huge Disney fan. That was something I found in my recovery also, how important it is to let that little boy come out and play. And when we were in Orlando, I thought, maybe I'll get a part-time job at Disney. So I did, and it was so much fun. And one of my jobs, I even keep this right here on my desk. These are my pilot wings. I
Uh-huh.
piloted the monorail at Disney World. That
Oh
was,
my gosh.
little 7-year-old Randy was like, oh my God. And I moved from that to work at the Grand Floridian Resort, which is the flagship resort at Disney World. And I had the honor of being the greeter at the Grand Floridian. So my job was to welcome people to the resort, celebrate their birthdays and anniversaries. And, I just finished chemo or whatever it was. And my job was to help celebrate that and to welcome them. And it was just making magic all day long. It was the
Mm.
most fun I've ever had at a job.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Hmm.
And what I love about that is that Disney personifies the idea of having hospitality that isn't centered around alcohol.
Exactly. I mean, some people do, and they go and they drink there, but the magic happens when you're not drinking at Disney. There's enough
Hmm.
magic around that you don't have to do that to yourself.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So when you think about now the world that we're in today, and you think about people going on, especially again, business travel, but even leisure travel, how do you think that hotel chains are missing the mark in terms of providing a welcoming experience that isn't starting with the alcohol?
I think hotels do a good job of kind of allowing you to have whatever experience you want. But one of the things that I found, and I found this working at Disney and from just observing, as a speaker, I've been at hundreds of hotels and what works, what doesn't. And the thing that I've seen that shifted and why my worth at work is starting to come out and why I want to do more consulting with people who work in hospitality and customer service is that we give people scripts on what they need to read in order to, hi, welcome to the Marriott. My name is Randy. How can I help you today? And I want to help people go from mechanical service to magical service. And what that has to do with the difference is how the person feels about themselves, their own self-worth that they bring into that. Are they feeling insecure in interactions? Do they feel like, oh, here comes another one? Or it was like, this guest has a story. I don't know what it is, but I want to see what I can do to give them the best service possible and
Mm-hmm.
bringing that into it. So worth at work is about helping the person behind the front desk or the housekeeper or the engineer, whoever, feel better about who they are so they bring that energy to the work that they do. And it's not just another room, another guest, that they get to bring their self into it. And that makes for a more magical connection with the guest.
What I love about the concept of empowering them to be curious is that I think a piece of that too is how do you help team members at a hotel or in hospitality celebrate people with a variety of options? When I'm a speaker and I go to my room and there's a bottle of wine, thank you for being a speaker. Like it just kills me. Or just generically checking in, here's your breakfast ticket and here's your happy hour ticket.
That
Now,
happens. Yeah. And I've
eh,
been in hotels where they give me a bottle of champagne or a bottle of wine, and I call downstairs and I say, I don't drink. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Would you like some chocolate covered strawberries instead? Sure. Yeah.
right. But what if we empowered the hospitality community to be more curious up front and to say, we have a variety of thank you gifts. We'd love to offer you one of these.
That would be great. You know what? I'm throwing that into my book. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Which is a great idea. Yeah, we'd like to offer you a welcome gift. What do you, and you get to check which one you want. That would be
Yeah.
a great idea.
Here's your breakfast ticket, and we have an option for you of a free appetizer or a free drink. Which would you prefer?
That would be, that's a great idea. Yeah. And I think that would make a huge difference for a lot of us.
Yeah,
Because some people just, they're not in addiction, but they choose not to drink for whatever reason, maybe family issue,
absolutely.
had a bad experience, and they don't want a bottle of wine. And what if it's someone new in recovery and it's their first time away? So you're right, that does need to be addressed.
Yeah. And then my co founder, Laura, shameless plug, wrote this book, The Inclusive Event Planner. And in it, she talks about what can we do to set up event after parties that are centered around more than the alcohol.
Mhm.
Can we have a one of those fake casino nights? Can we have carnival games? Can we have a improv person come in? Like, are there things that we can do where it's more than just turning up the music to decibels where we can't hear each other
Mhm.
and rolling out the black bars? We're there to connect. We're there to network. We're there to have shared experiences together.
That's a really good point. You're absolutely right. And I think that is an evolution that would be helpful within the hospitality market. I mean, when you think about how much money people spend on alcohol, the black bar, if you just change it to beer and wine and make it something you push off to the side and use that extra money to put it into other fun things that are more inclusive, yeah, that would be a game changer.
Now, I want to wrap this back around, though, to the work that you're doing in Worth with Work, because I think that we've gone through a series of things in the world, starting with COVID and all that has come down the track since then, that has just made everybody exhausted.
Yeah.
We're exhausted. We're mentally exhausted. We're emotionally exhausted. We're physically exhausted. We're just toast, right?
Yeah.
And just showing up is hard.
Hmm.
Just coming home at the end of the day and turning on the TV because we're just toast.
Hmm.
And for a lot of people, I think the COVID shutdown era was a real wake up call. More people than I can tell you got sober during COVID because their drinking scared them.
Hmm. Yep.
However, there are others for whom that was just the gateway, and numbing themselves with alcohol, numbing themselves with food, with the social media doom scrolling. Like, it's just become a way that all of us are just trying to hang on the best we can. So talk to me about how your work is intrinsically tied into all of that.
Absolutely. And a lot of what you're talking about is what I write about in my book, Becoming Your Own BFF, that it's about taking care of self. And I have this theory, this concept that I talk about of the energy ball. We all have an energy ball. I mean, before you do one of these episodes, you make sure your energy ball is full. Because if you come into these with a really small energy ball, it's not going to be a great episode. So you need to take care of yourself. So there are things that we can do to expand our energy ball to make sure that it has enough to get through our day and be happy and full and excited and everything that life has to offer rather than, oh my God, that happened and that happened. And how much did I just pay for gas? And, all these different things just shrink it. So what I do is I talk about there are four parts to who we are: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And if we exercise and nourish the four parts of self on a regular basis, we eat more protein than sugar, we drink a lot of water, make sure we get rest, napping, those kind of things physically help build our energy ball. But if I wake up and have a Snickers bar and then a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it's not going to be good for me. Mentally, what do I do to keep myself stimulated? I love Sudoku, crossword puzzles, other games that stimulate my mind. I surround myself with people that I can have intellectual conversations with. Emotionally, journaling, therapy, doing these to me is just so emotionally fulfilling to me. I'm sure for you too. And spiritually, spiritual to me is different than religious. If someone has a religious background, that's great. But a lot of people have trouble with this spiritual thing. I believe in the saying, one light, many lampshades. Find the one that works for you. But to me, spiritual is about connection, connecting to other people, feeling like you have worth and value. You're contributing something to your community, to the world. That to me is spiritual. So when we do things positive in those four areas, it fills our energy ball. And we feel better about who we are and what we're doing and where we're going, and everything gets better. So that's something that people can do.
There's a story behind where you came up with this. Would you tell that?
Which story are we? I have so many stories. Which
I
one?
don't know. I don't know. I'm
Um,
asking you, like, what place in you birthed this concept?
okay, well, here's what happened. I was at a conference doing my Party with a Plan program, and I was walking down the hall after my program, and I heard some of the conference people talking. And they said, "Oh my God, what are we going to do? One of our speakers didn't show up. There's a room full of people, and no one's there." And I went, I have a program I can do. And they said, "Really? You have another one?" I'm like, "Yeah." They said, "Oh, great. Go down to room B." I'm like, "Okay." And I walk away and think, "Oh my God, what am I going to say? I have no idea. What can I talk about?" Okay. A lot of college students are struggling with self-esteem. And there's a difference between self-esteem and ego. Okay, I'm going to go and talk about that. So I go in, "Hi, everybody. Speaker didn't show up, but I'm here, Randy Haveson. I'm going to talk about self-esteem and how to feel better about who you are and where you fit in the world. That our society tells us that ego and self-esteem are the same thing, but they're not. They're opposites. When we reinforce our ego, we deny self-esteem. When we build our self-esteem, we deny our ego. And how do we do that? We fill ourselves up. We have this energy ball inside of us, and it's four parts of self. And the whole time I'm talking, my brain is like, "Oh my God, this is really good." And it just came out. And I talked about the obstacle words that get in our way, can't and should and try, that those life gives us hurdles, but we have a tendency to turn hurdles into walls. I can't do that. Well, then you're absolutely right. How about it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to do my very best? It's not, "Oh, I should do better." I did the best I can. So it's getting rid of the obstacle words. And I talk about the bully voice and the best friend voice that we have in our head. And for a lot of people, we default to the bully voice. And, "Oh, I can't believe you said that. Oh, how did you do? Look at her. She looks really good. And you look." And it's that bully that's always talking at us. But there's the best friend voice too. "Hey, you're okay. Oh my God, I love you just the way you are." And we get to choose. Once we realize we have two, the bully loses its megaphone and the best friend starts to pick it up. So by doing all these things, we move on that continuum towards a higher sense of self-esteem. We lose our ego. We feel better about who we are. It's easier to nourish and exercise the four parts of self. And all of a sudden, God, I mean, here I am coming up on 42 years of sobriety. I have an amazing relationship. I love my relationship with my daughter. I'm writing 3 books right now. One of them is called Generational Perfectionism, which I am so excited about, talking about how we take on this perfectionistic role that comes from our parents and their parents, and it goes back generations. So how to break that cycle. And it's if you just stay out of your own way, anything is possible. That's the bottom line.
One of the things that I often ask people in this show is, to the person who has gotten sober, gotten through the early days, and now they're convicted. Now they want to do something with that.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Find your passion. Find that thing that really just turns you on, that you really want to throw yourself into. I remember the first time I was on stage. Well, actually, I was on stage as a drummer for years. And that rush that would happen when I was on stage. So when I got on stage as a speaker for the first time, it brought that back. And I felt very comfortable on a stage. It's like, "Yeah, let's go." And I brought that energy to the presentation. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So, and then when I was 50, I finally got diagnosed with ADHD. And I had it my whole life. But back in the 80s, back when I was growing up in the 70s, no one ever talked about ADD.
Yeah.
So I was the kid, Randy, you're so smart. Why can't you get your work done?
Mm.
And high IQ, couldn't get a C to if my life depended on it. And I struggled my whole life until I was 50 years old. I wanted to write books, but I don't have the energy to sit down and write a book. My brain doesn't focus like that. Then I found medication. When I got my evaluation, the psychiatrist said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and you have the most severe case I've ever seen. I was
Mm.
like, yay, I'm number one.
Overachiever again.
Absolutely. But then I realized why cocaine was my drug of choice. I was
Mm.
self medicating, but I took it to the point of addiction. And what helped me all of a sudden, it made me crash. But now that I'm medicated, I can write books. And it's been awesome. And I love it. And it kind of levels me out and I can get things done. So it was just I'm a true believer in find out what's going on. Go to doctors, naturopaths, psychiatrists, counselors. Is there depression? Is there anxiety? Is there something else going on? Because with a lot of us, there are secondary issues that we need to address. It's not just about getting sober. And I believe that there's a difference between being sober and being in recovery. I remember even early on,
1,000%.
I'd go to meetings and I'd see people. And they'd sit in the same seat, drinking a gallon of coffee at 8 o'clock at night and smoking cigarettes and talking about how spiritual they are. And I'm like, I don't want that. No, it's not about memorizing the big book or about being able to talk about, I have this many years. It's not about that. It's not about what you have. It's about who you are. And when you work on that stuff and you address the issues, it there's a you are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. That
Mm-hmm.
happens at so many different levels. And I find different levels all the time. At 40, almost 42 years, I'm not done. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I love that part. I don't want to be done. I don't want to be stuck. So I just enjoy everything life has to offer.
And isn't it a great world that we live in today? We're talking about these things where we're being openly sober is okay. I mean, are there still people who judge? Yes, but that's about them. That's about their journey. But I think
Absolutely.
societally, we're in this exciting time, again,
Yeah.
especially since COVID days, where the conversation is just opening up and we get to have the journey in a way that feels supported, feels supportive. And the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was at the dog park last week and I was saying, yeah, I'm writing my book, but I need my ADD meds to kick in. And she went, I have ADD. It's like, really? What are you on? She said, Vyvanse. It's like, yeah, I tried that. I like Adderall. And another woman said, yeah, I have that too, but I have depression also. And all of a sudden, there's a group of us and we're all talking about this stuff, just like people would talk about the weather. That didn't happen 10 years ago,
Mm-mm.
but it can happen now. We can normalize those things. It's not something to be ashamed of. I didn't choose to have ADD. I didn't choose to be an addict, but it happened. So I can either accept it and make it a part of me, or I can fight it or be ashamed of it. But no, I want to be an example to others that when you address these, life just opens up. And you know that too. I mean, that's why you're doing this show. There was something that called you that I want to do this. And I want people that are listening and watching, find that thing you've always wanted to do and go for it.
I love that. Randy, your energy is infectious. What's the best way for people to connect with you? And we'll put it in our show notes as well.
Oh, sure. Email address is randy@randyspeaks.com. I rarely use the Randy Speaks website anymore. I change it to randyhaveson.com and also worthatwork.com. So those are the best ways for people to get a hold of me through the websites and through my email address. But I'm always willing to help someone out. When I would speak, I would tell people, here's my email address. And I'd get emails from students 6 months later. And it was just such an honor that people trusted me with this stuff. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I love being of service.
As we bring this to a close, I just want to reflect a little bit that getting to talk to somebody who has a sobriety story that spans decades It reminds me that while these decisions that we make, they often happen in really difficult moments.
Mhm.
And they don't necessarily, these changes don't happen immediately, but they do shape who we become over time. And what
Mhm.
stood out for me in this conversation with Randy is that this isn't just about the alcohol or the drugs or the fill in the blank substance. It's it's about how we relate to ourselves, our
Exactly.
worth, our coping, our choices, and how that shows up in every environment that we're part of, from our personal lives to the spaces that we gather in, the conferences, the holiday parties, the college parties, and how we take care of ourselves in a world that can be overwhelming.
Mhm.
And maybe that's the real takeaway, that changing your relationship with alcohol or substances isn't just about what you remove, it's about what you build in its place.
Yes. Oh,
And
that was beautifully said.
and that's just the joy and the gift that we get. And when we build something in its place, having the courage to then exponentially share those ripples with the world.
Yeah. Yep. It's a gift. And it's true, happiness starts from the inside out. Doesn't happen from the outside in.
So thank you all for listening to Sober Life Rocks. Thank you, Randy, for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And if this conversation gave you a new perspective or got you feeling hopeful in any way, please share it with somebody else who might need to hear it. See you next week.